2016 Kawasaki Z800 ABS First Ride Review. I have a confession to make. I rode the Kawasaki Z800 in 2013, long before its US introduction in Palm Springs, California this week. It was on a test track in southern Italy during a new tire introduction, and despite the fact the track is not the Z800's element, Kawasaki bills the Baby Z as a street fighter ideally suited for commuting or weekend blasts in the canyons. I came back pleasantly surprised. I remember the spread of power was impressive, the completely analog transmission shifted with buttery smooth precision, the brakes never faded and the chassis was fluid and responsive. I wanted one but left Italy disappointed that I wouldn't be able to get my hands on a Z800 stateside. Fast forward to today with the naked street fighter class gaining in popularity. According to Kawasaki market research, within the past 5 years, sales in the midsize segment of the standard category have been growing rapidly. Quicker, even, than the open class standards. It's easy to see why when the bikes like the MV Agusta Brutal 800, $12,798, Ducati Monster 821, $11,595, Suzuki GSX, S750, $7,999, Triumph Street Triple, $9,400, and Yamaha's FZ Duo the FZ09, $8,190, and FZ 07, $6,990, all occupy a similar space. It's a crowded landscape to join, but Kawasaki realized it had just the weapon for the job, both in terms of cost and performance, in the $8,399 Z800 ABS, and it's been residing in Europe, and Australia and New Zealand, for the past 2 years. Finally, the Little Z is coming to America as a 49-state model. For 2016. That's right, the Z800 ABS won't be sold in California, but Ka-I reps stated a request has been made to Japan to make the bike 50-state legal ASAP. Nonetheless, the bike is here now, and while the engine has roots to the pre-2010 Z1000, which itself had roots dating back to the 1990s, a more accurate view would be to see it as the successor to the previous Z750, a motorcycle which, Kawasaki says, sold more than 160,000 units worldwide during its 10-year run from 2003 to 2013. European riders have been enjoying the Kawasaki Z800 since 2013. Now it's America's turn to try some of the fun. Unless you live in California. Nuts and bolts. Calling it an 800 is actually doing the Z a slight disservice, as the DOHC inline 4 is 806 cubic centimeters, the result of an increased bore over the 750, 71 mm versus 68 4 mm. Stroke stays the same at 59 mm. Compression ratio is a relatively high 11.9:1, with 3/4 mm Keihin throttle bodies feeding the air/fuel mixture. To help bolster mid-range power, intake and exhaust ports are tweaked over the 750, intake ducts grow in length, 41.5 mm from 36.5 mm, and the intake funnels themselves are changed. The two inner funnels are longer than the outer units. Exhaust headers 1 and 4 are connected as well as headers for cylinders 2 and 3, also in an effort to maximize torque. Kawasaki bored out the previous Z750 engine to produce 806 cubic centimeters displacement. The engine is supported by a steel backbone frame with support spars cradling both sides of the engine. Kawasaki engineers also went through the trouble of updating or revising a plethora of components inside the engine. These include lighter pistons compared to the 750, bigger oil jets, and bigger crankshaft journals, just to name a few. Ka-I Europe has the bike rated at 111 HP, with published reports online stating rear wheel numbers hovering just below the century mark. Chassis-wise, the 800 is based on the steel backbone frame of the 750, with reinforcement and rigidity added in the form of twin spars that extend down both sides of the engine, visually dividing the head from the block. The two sides then connect in the middle, between the block and the headers. Of course, this is all cleverly disguised in minimal bodywork that accentuates the Z800's street fighter intentions. A cast aluminum subframe helps lighten the rear end, but the swing arm is steel. Pedal-type discs are on the smaller side at 277 mm, but despite the non-radial caliper arrangement there are no big complaints in the Z800's braking. Note also the ABS ring, the only sign of 21st century tech on this bike. Dunlop SBE or T-Max D214 tires sit front and rear in 120/70, 17 and 180/55, 17 sizes. As a result of the steel frame and swing arm, the Z800 is a heavy bike, with Kawasaki rating it at 509.4 lbs wet. For reference, the 800's bigger brother, the Z1000, is rated at 487.3 lbs on both the MO scales and the ones at Team Green HQ. For a more in-depth look at how the Z800 matches up to some of its closest, and not so close, rivals, check out the spec chart later on in this story. Suspension duties are handled via 41mm KYB fork and rear shock, both ends only adjustable for spring preload and rebound damping. Unlike the Versys and Z1000, the Z800's shock is mounted vertically, though its reservoir is horizontal. 4-pot calipers are not radial mounts, but they are clamping on pedal-type discs, 277 mm in diameter on each side. A single 216 mm pedal disc rests out back, squeezed by a single piston caliper. ABS, as the Z800 ABS names implies, comes standard and is always on. Otherwise, the Z is void of all the other gizmos found on today's motorcycles. There's no traction control, quick shifter, power modes, or anything else. It's just man, or woman, and machine. The LCD instrument cluster features a vertical bar graph tachometer in the center with speed displayed in numerals to the right. Other displays include odometer, 2 trip meters, average MPG, instant MPG, clock, engine temp and fuel gauge. Unfortunately, there isn't a gear position indicator. With some pushes of the 2 buttons on the top left, the screen can switch colors and show a black background with white lettering instead of the standard black letters on a white background seen here. Riding impressions. Since the Z800 ABS is not available for sale in California, the irony of having its intro in Palm Springs wasn't lost on anyone. However, the locale proved to be an ideal setting, as its close proximity to highways and canyon roads mimics what most users will use the bike for. Having polled Z1000 owners on their primary usage, Kawasaki learned that half of owners use their Zs for commuting purposes, while another 39% primarily played in the twisties. Thus, our ride would be a good chance for the 800 to shine in its natural environment. Since my initial encounter with the Z was on a racetrack, its street manners were completely foreign to me. And since this was 2 years ago, some of the finer details have slipped my mind, too. Within the first few miles of riding I was reminded of the 800's healthy mid-range grunt. The Kawasaki pulls from idle to around 8,000 rpm, where most street riders will spend the vast majority of their time on the Z. Kawasaki research says half of those who purchase a Z will commute with it. The comfortable seating position lends itself well to commuting duties, though I personally would add more cushioning to the seat's forwardmost edge. Power starts to taper once you get closer to its 12K red line, but with a quick release of the throttle and firm flick of the toe, the next gear is quickly engaged and the bike keeps pulling. Power delivery is smooth and there's hardly a vibe felt through the bars, but then again, I've been riding BMW's S1000XR for the past several weeks. When placed side by side with the paint mixer wedged in the Beamer's engine bay, the Z800S4 feels divine in comparison. It's hard to draw a fault with the 806 cubic centimeters for, other than a generic niggle we've expressed in the past about inline fours, their sound. 3 cylinders wail their beautiful melody at full song, V-twins have their distinctive burble, and Yamaha's cross-plane 4 sounds downright mean when you get on it. The Z fails to inspire in quite the same way, but still has no trouble hustling down the road. When allowed to stretch its legs, the Z800 impresses with its broad mid-range power. And despite its budget suspension, the ride quality was comfortable for city streets and composed for canyon carving. Though nobody would complain if the Z lost a few pounds. Ergos are well suited for the street rider who likes to hit the canyons on the weekend. The rider triangle is sporty, but not overly so. For my 5'8" frame, the pegs aren't too high, the knees don't spread too far, and the upper body tilts forward just a little. Combined with the smooth and punchy engine, it would be easy to envision the Z as a practical commuter. It even has hooks on the license plate holder to attach bungee cords. If it were mine, I'd find a way to add a little more padding in the seat cushion. My nether regions got a little sore after about 45 minutes. Of course, another way to get some blood flowing down there and forget about the seat is to hit the twisty stuff. Despite weighing a claimed 509 pounds, the Z800 ABS handles high-speed sweepers with confidence and rolling direction changes fluidly, the bars wide enough to provide a firm dose of leverage. It's during quick transitions where one really thinks about putting the Z on a diet. Though the suspension is only adjustable for spring preload and rebound damping, it felt well composed right from the start. Braking power from the 4-pot Nissans is good, but I'd stop short of calling it great. I'd prefer a touch more initial bite. Though I did appreciate the adjustable brake lever. Better late than never. 2 years ago I was saddened by the fact I wouldn't be able to swing a leg over the Z800 stateside. Now that I finally can, sorta, 49 state bike and all, I'm pleased to know my 2-year-old memories haven't been clouded by time. The problem is that the competition has upped their game as well. Suzuki's GSX S750 presents maybe the closest challenge to the Kawai, their $400 price difference making them really well matched, but the excitement offered by the 3-cylinder engines in the Triumph Street Triple and Yamaha FZ09 is hard to ignore. With its affordable price tag and all-around versatility, the Z800 ABS has what it takes to compete with similarly priced opponents in this field. We're looking forward to gathering them together and seeing which one is best. At $8,400, the Kawasaki Z800 ABS is a great deal in the category and provides the many riders out there who hate the tech in today's bikes an outlet. We know you're out there, we read the comments section. It'll haul ass if you want it to, yet also be perfectly at home strafing through town on the way to work or school. We'll be bringing all of these contenders together to sort out who's tops on our list, but in the meantime, no, you can't go wrong with the Z800 ABS.